Okay, so as we look at the agenda for today, Paul, next slide. So as I said, we want to solicit and document any future needs of our community. So communication is key. One of the things that we've seen failed in the past is failure to communicate and gather ideas from the whole community. We want to collaborate and discuss those ideas and identify next steps. As we go into, Paul, I like to have my own. We'll go through our ground rules. We'll review the 2020 study, and then we'll get into the details of generating new ideas. We'll start by talking about the ideas that have been submitted to us, and then we'll see if there's any other ideas from the floor. So as we go through the ground rules, Joe mentioned this a little bit. There are no wrong answers today. Wherever comes to your mind, whatever you've been thinking about it, let's get it out on a piece of paper. We'll evaluate it later. Some ideas will fly, some ideas won't for a variety of reasons. But one thing we don't want to do, we don't want to judge, we don't want to criticize. Okay, we can discuss, we can push back a little, say, oh, what do you really mean by that, and so forth, because this is a dialogue, right? It's not a presentation. Share the air, and what I mean by that is occasionally when you have a public forum, there might be certain individuals who might want to comment on every single item, might want to comment on top of themselves. So I like to follow the 3x3 rule, okay? So if you speak, try to count. One person spoke after me, two people spoke after me, three people spoke after me. Or there's been like 3 minutes. That's what the 3x3 rule is. 3 people or 3 minutes. Just as a rough guide, just keep it in the back of your head. And lastly, the concept of the parking lot. What a parking lot is, and ironically, we have an issue with our parking lot, but that will become a parking lot item. What the parking lot is, there will be things that come up that we cannot resolve today. You just have to recognize them, say, you know what? One of the things down the road that we're not going to resolve today that we might have to get back to is X, Y, Z. And you just agree to move on. It's important to document those things because they're real issues. So, for those of you who don't recall, there was a long-term study done in 2020. Some of the people that were in that study, conducted that study, or were in the room, and they summarized a number of things that they gathered from the community. Some of those are related to the strengths of the community. So generally speaking, one of the strengths of the community was viewed as our landscaping. People love the look and feel of Pelican Marsh. It's what invited me to come here. I think it's probably something that attracts new buyers to a community and probably something we don't want to lose sight of. The community center activities. People love the events, the games, entertainment, trivia nights, singers, so forth. That came through very clearly as another strength of the community. Location, proximity to shopping, the beach, the airport, all viewed as a strength. Our amenities, such as a fitness center, tennis, pickleball, bocce, all seen as a positive strength. Now you start getting into some of the challenges, though. Looking at our infrastructure, and remember, this is from 5 years ago. Talking about the infrastructure of the community, maintaining our property values is viewed as the greatest challenge over the next 5 years, where we're at now. Other key challenges, managing costs, keeping up with the competition, other resorts, other communities where people might choose to live, and the issue with parking that we have. And we could talk a little bit about that in a moment. There's also some people who like what we have, don't want to add to the amenities we have. They don't really use some of the amenities. And it's important to understand their voice as well. And I do want to just call out the members of those committees because they spent a lot of time, I'm sure back in 2020, right? Working this up and establish this as a baseline for us. So digging into that study a little bit more, these were their recommendations that were brought forth. And the smiley faces means these are things that actually were delivered by the foundation to the community. So food service was viewed as the #1 amenity that people wanted to deliver. And luckily, we have a wonderful dining experience now with courtside. Expanding and updating the gym and the equipment. Well, all the equipment was updated in the past year or so, right? Which is wonderful, but we still have the challenge of expanding and updating the gym. Community pool was something that was asked for back then. 15% of the people asked for that. 13% of people asked for either beach access or transportation. 6% asked for additional pickleball courts, which we, as of a couple weeks ago, have delivered on. Additional tennis courts, 5%, and more safer water bike paths. So these are all the things that were put forth by the community 5 years ago. So let's pause. These are the things that the community has come back to in the last month saying that they would like to see. So what I'd like to do is just go through each one of them, one by one, see if anybody has any general comments and thoughts. Once again, if we get off track, if issues come up, we either were parking lot the issue. There were some things that came up that were more about how to do things as opposed to what. Today is really about the what's. There are some ideas that were documented, and we want to document them in terms of ideas about how to deliver on some of these projects. But today we're going to focus on the what. So the first item, and these are in no particular order, no order whatsoever, because you'll see as we get to next steps, the next steps is getting feedback from the community as a whole on all these concepts. Okay, so, and you guys can see the Post-its, the people online, hopefully you're reading the slides, but the first item that we have documented is back to the pool. A lap pool, a resort pool. I think there was a couple people that included that in their request, and as we saw in 2020, that was something that was requested quite a bit. Does anybody have any general comments to add about that?
Been turned down about 36 times.
I think you came in after the judge and criticized discussion. Dino.
In order for the people on Zoom to hear them, they can come up to the microphone. I know it's.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to get a second microphone to pass around, so let's just pause for a second.
Fair to ask for reasons why a particular proposal has been advanced.
We can have a discussion to understand. We can get a discussion to understand what some of the hurdles have been in the past. Like I said, we're not going to dive into details, but this is a discussion. So if people could share what some of the hurdles are, let's just wait. Everyone wait 1 minute till we get the microphone around. Sure. So Dino's first. I'm using my ESP skills and guessing where you're going. Go ahead.
So the resort, there's a question first on the resort, the pool.
But right now we're talking about the pool.
Just a comment. Tremendous idea, increases the value. It's amazing, but it is really going to land way up on that parking lot because there is no parking for it. And when you have a situation where you have something that people, a destination, we all know this, they're going to camp out, and our parking problem becomes even more of a parking problem.
Yep, understood. So Steve, before we go there, parking in general will come up as a topic. One of the concepts we've had, and we've shared this at our board meetings about parking, is we think we have the ability to add 16, 18 spots across the street, which will allow us to do some additional construction, approximately 3,000 square feet of indoor construction if we choose to go that route. But parking is a limiting factor for us right now. Joe and I had an opportunity to meet with the golf community about 3 weeks or so ago. And I know it's something on their board agenda this week in terms of discussing moving forward with that project to put additional parking spots across the street. Steve, what's next?
I have just a question about the space. So when we think about our campus and the limited amount of space that we have, if we're going to add to infrastructure, it's going to remove space. It's going to take away space. And the more infrastructure we add, the more crowded and compressed this whole small area that we're limited to is going to feel. So while I love the idea of a lap pool, which would have to be, let's just say 25 yards long, and probably 10 yards wide, that's a big ingress into the potential space that we have now. And I just think that we don't have the room for it, and I am concerned about any development that is going to further make this place feel more crowded, smaller. That's it.
Yeah. And one of the feedbacks or one of the outputs of this workshop, as we move forward with recommendations, I think is just documenting some of the reasons why we feel as if it's not a good reason. Because people come into the community new, they have great, exciting, ideas and concepts, but it's important for them to know the history, to know why we don't feel so. And we could point to, hey, if you're interested in a pool, this is some of the concerns and hurdles that we had about it. So I realize that some of this is a rehash, but I think it's important for us to all get on the same page and document that. So this gentleman you have a mic?
So Brian, is
Yep.
it? My name's Rob Norwalk. I wasn't here in 2020. We bought in 23. Great place, love it. Good to meet people. We're loving what we've got. My question is really kind of a couple steps back. This meeting today, 2 hours of our time, what is success today? What's the deliverable today? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, we're trying to document ideas and concepts coming from the community, things that the community like to possibly have as additional amenities or improvements. Once we have that list, we're going to do a community survey to see how much any of those resonate with the community. Those that resonate highly with the community, we're going to do an additional deep dive in terms of looking at they're able to deliver from a cost or environmental factor. Environmental meaning, do we have the space? Do we have the parking? Do we have other risks in those areas? What is the cost associated with some of those items? So once we have a total pool, we're going to get feedback from the community as a whole, narrow it down, and do a deeper dive towards what are some of the deliverables we can make.
So if I heard you right, today is about brainstorming.
It's a workshop.
Selection.
It's a workshop.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand where we're at so I can help.
Al over here.
Al Sterner, Claremont next door. On the issue of a pool, takes up a lot of space, lap pool. How about a mechanized lap pool? Couple of lanes, water flowing, small footprint. You can see it from Goodlet Frank. One of the opportunities we have here is passive advertising. When people drive by and they look, what's open, they're not supposed to look, but they do. If they see color, they see the color aqua, that's going to sell. I want that lifestyle.
Al, if you don't mind, I'm just going to make that as a separate note in terms of more of a smaller mechanized lap pool. Just so we capture that concept. Anybody else want to discuss pool? Okay. Number 2, more pickleball courts. Recommendation was made to go, we just opened 2 additional pickleball courts. The ask was for us to look at additional pickleball courts. Anybody would like to add comment or thought? Cindy?
We could put that additional courts on the parking lot. We don't know what we're gonna need. We just add it to, listen, I'd love 20. But the reality is, let's see what we have. Put that on the parking lot, come back to that one in a year or two, see how the numbers are, and we'll have a better idea who uses this facility. It's not just tennis, it's not just pickleball, it's bocce. How many people are in this building? Do we really have a good number here? So I'd like to put that, and as the chair of the pickleball committee, I'm gonna have a lot of people either screaming in my ear or clapping over here. But I think that's a good parking lot spot. Right now, we don't know what we need. We just opened.
And one of the things that was suggested by the community was more analytics around current use of our existing amenities. And there's been a lot of improvement on the court sports side of gathering that information. I know bocce has good data related to bocce court usage. Some of the other areas, I don't think it's as well known or understood in terms of gym usage, library usage, whatever it may be. So I appreciate that, and we can see if there's any other comments related to the pickleball, but I do think one of the keys that we have from a long-term planning perspective is to continue to gather and circulate our usage of our amenities.
Definitely, because we have people, I know that there are people that play cards here, that play mahjong here, that are here, and they're bringing their cars, so to go back to the parking lot,
Mhm.
who don't live here. And we need to know who's here. And I think that would help all of us in planning in the future. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Can I add to that?
We just want the microphone so for the people online. It's somewhat difficult to have like people online, but let's try to respect them.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I came today with one thought that I wanted to share, and I'm Brent Smith. I've been on the Finance Committee for 3 years, and I want to jump on that data issue that you mentioned, and that in all the times we've been deliberating on various projects and activities that go on around the community, I have felt that there was not enough information and data on exactly what the utilization of our amenities has been. You can say to me, we had 50 pickleball reservations last month. We could say 500 people played bocce last year, but those are just numbers. They're not data. They're not organized by time frame. They're not organized by activity or type of activity. So what I'm getting at is, I'd like to see us gather this data and publish it on a regular basis so that these numbers get out to the community and they are seen and known by everybody who wants to talk about the utilization of our amenities. We can see it. It's common knowledge. We don't have to come in with new information all the time.
I agree with you. I will just highlight the fact that there is data that's gathered both by tennis and pickleball that's presented in the individual committee meetings that they have. And we probably can do a much better job disseminating it. Yeah, and in fairness to them, they publish it in their minutes that are available on, but we as a foundation can do it. Yeah.
I know. Okay, so I have to go online and get the minutes of the pickleball.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just letting you know that, yeah, so it's not a debate. It's not a debate. It's not a debate. It's a good suggestion. We need to improve our communications of that data. We're just highlighting the fact that data is available.
Get it.
But you're just one person. So I'm not worried about one person getting information. I'm more worried about making it easier for everybody. Everybody should just be able to go to the site, click a usage report for each of the amenities that we have if they're curious, and they should know it's there. Yes,
Compilation of this.
yes, that's what we're saying, yes.
Paige Giannetti, Egrets. I would assume, but maybe this is just an assumption, that the board, before it brings anything forward, that it's going to integrate multiple types of information. So the survey might be one piece of information. This data that just got brought up, that might be another piece of information. And therefore, I would encourage us to not take anything off the list because I would want to see what the data looks like.
That's where I'm leaning as well, but anybody else would like to talk about pickleball? Okay. Moving along, more bocce courts. This was put forth by the community as well. Anybody have any general comments related to that? Dino? Can we get Dino Mike here?
Hi, Dino Lauricella, Ariel. What bocce every year keeps growing, as everybody's hearing. What we see as the future is that what we basically did is, as a committee, we looked at our situation and our problem. Too many people, I should say, a lot of people, not enough courts. So what we did is we started thinking outside the box. We're not going to get new courts today, not going to tomorrow. So, or extra courts. So what we did is we decided to look at our scheduling. And what we did is we decided to accommodate more people, more of the members, by just changing little things on the scheduling, simply by adding bye weeks and changing the timeframes and so forth. We tried testing it last year. There were some failures and some negatives. So what we did this year, we're at a capacity of 64 teams at this time. And the most that we can play at a single time is 48. So what we did is we took the scheduling and got creative. Now, that works this year, hopefully, but in the future, we probably are going to need a fourth court. But at the same time, I don't think it's something that should go on. I think it should go on the parking lot because I don't think it's needed today because we're testing something. We're seeing if that works. We didn't add more time slots. We didn't force people out of their comfort zone yet and said, hey, you got to play on a Friday. You know, it's one of those things that we know that parking is a problem, expansion of the buildings, financing, everything comes into play. So what we took, our approach was that we started thinking outside the box and started thinking about the scheduling and how we could use that. And the only thing I want to add to is that when we do think about putting in a fourth court, the bocce people do take time 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And so that is a less stress on the parking situation. And many of those people do support the restaurant before and after, which I know that once we have a goal, we start generating revenue for the foundation.
Thank you, Dino. Just for everyone to understand, whether it be a pickleball court, a tennis court, a bocce court, in Collier County, any court that you add is, you have to add 3 additional parking spots, just as a general reference for everyone. Does somebody have a comment, Jerry? Thanks.
That's the key to half your problems is scheduling here. I think what you need to do, unfortunately, I've got that history of how Pelican Marsh was created by Westinghouse. Okay, it wasn't created 25 years down the road, 30 years down the road. It was created for that time. They had success across the street with Pelican Bay. What they did is they increased the land value by putting in golf courses. Okay, everything was generated off the concept of golf courses, and one additional amenity was basically tennis. We only had 5 tennis courts here. A shack or, oh,
Jerry, can you bring it up closer?
I guess, bicycling and all the other.
They can't hear you.
I'm sorry. So going down the road, the limit of the space, the limit of the parking still comes into play. One of the problems is that realtors are in here, they don't provide all the information, okay, that they should. People see everything that's going on activity wise, but I can guarantee you, there's nobody that tells a coming in client that wants to play tennis that there's a real packed tennis situation here. It doesn't come every day, the schedule of it. Okay, so they come in, buy, and they think they can play tennis every day, every hour. Not gonna happen.
And I do
Okay.
think, Jerry, that it's a very good item to note that we can control some of our issues via improving our scheduling. So I just want to make note of that.
'Cause
Does anyone have any other bocce comments?
3 people, but it's 3 minutes, you want to have one.
No, don't make the same mistake we made with courtside, because what happened with courtside, you ended up taking more space and pushed the spin bikes out of commission. Okay,
Got you.
got it? There you go, buddy.
One of the things I wanted to say that, and this goes to probably as we were talking about analytics, we have a list of people that are participating in bocce, but what we had thought of in the past is where the bocce balls were stored. We wanted to have some kind of a key fob system to unlock it so that we can get more of an accurate data of those that are not signed up for bocce, because there are people that go there during the day, in the morning, whatever it might be, that don't sign up or don't register. So we really don't know how many people are doing that. And I would also say that people that go up to the pickleball courts or run on the tennis or come in or use the fitness center. That's the data gathering is such an important thing to determine the demand and how we spend the money.
Okay, let me just make note of that. Okay,
Brian,
yes.
could you tell us again how long you're seeing this plan as serving us for? Because I've heard a couple people say we don't have that need right now for something.
Yeah.
But maybe we are anticipating it, because if we look at the data from the previous survey and we think about how different it would be
Right.
just 6 months ago,
Yeah.
how long are we thinking?
I don't think I have an answer to that, to be honest. I haven't had a chance to talk to any of the board members about that per se. I think it's a valid question, something we'll have to, consider,
So it could be 3, it could be 5.
I would anticipate it's 3 to 5 years, but I don't want to say with any certainty. Yeah. Okay, moving along. Improved seating, whether it be for tennis courts, pickleball courts, was one of the suggestions from a number of people. Cindy,
Okay. Will the improved seating and viewing for tennis and pickleball? Because we just did these new courts. If you look now on the side that runs parallel to Pelican Marsh Boulevard, there's shrubs there, there's concrete, there's electrical wires, there's no viewing. We actually have in the next 2 weeks, 2 leagues, 2 matches that are going to be played with different groups. So the 6 courts are going to be used. There's no viewing for the people who are going to be on courts 4, 5, and 6. If we can get that cleared out, first of all, it's a safety hazard. I walked out there and there's gates back there. So because coming in and out, now we're
Yeah.
cutting through when other people are playing. So for a safety factor, it needs to be done. But for the viewing, if we can get that cleaned out, if we can do some sort of seating, whether it's some sort of stadium seating or something, now when the matches are being played, we can have dual matches, which we're going to have anyway because it's already scheduled. But now people can view it because that was the biggest complaint when we put it in. How are we going to view it? So unless you're sitting in your car and you've parked the car and you can look in, otherwise you're really stuck if you're playing on court 4, 5, and 6, because there's no way that you can view any matches.
okay,
So
good feedback.
for that
Yep.
would be great.
Anybody else? Steve, Cindy, can you pass to Steve, please?
That was the pickleball side. Let's just look at the tennis side. The issue for seating and viewing for the tennis courts, which are oriented north-south, is the immutable fact that the sun sets in the west. And virtually all the viewing times are in the afternoon for team tennis. So in the mornings, we have groups playing, and there's not a lot of interest in watching the groups play. We have obviously the tennis center seating, which looks at courts 4 and 5, and that's usually those courts are well attended from a viewing point of view, and it's a great setup. However, the rest of the courts are not, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in looking at those courts during the morning. People are playing, there's not a lot of spectators. Now in the afternoons, you have team tennis. There's much more of interest to look at. The problem is that the sun sets in the west. So any seating to the east of these courts is looking directly into the setting sun in the afternoon. And this is not something that's going to change, obviously. So you can try to solve that with umbrellas and canopies, and it's a difficult thing because of the angle. People don't want the sun in their face and having their faces broil while they're watching this. So how do you deal with that? You know, we obviously thought about putting seating to the west, so the setting sun is behind these folks. And then the problem there was the overflow parking for the parking lot. If you can solve the parking problem, then you open up that area for seating, and that would mean that you have some sort of stadium seating arrangement with their backs toward Goodlet. And they could, it would really change the character of the viewing arrangements for the tennis program at Pelican Marsh. But until that time, I think that any attempt to try to put seating to the east of the courts is going to be difficult.
Yep, you highlight one of the challenges. Yep. Anybody else? Joe? That one working?
Not my idea, but I'll share this from others in the community that have mentioned this. We have those, I think there are 3 sheds along the path in the back. There's 3 of those sheds. They're not the same color. Don't look like they were made at the same time, but I went out there with Johan and looked at everything that was in there, and it looks like there can be some consolidation of the equipment and overflow and things that we have in those sheds. Potentially either get rid of one of them and provide some seating on the other side of that tennis court. Since now we don't have any area to watch in between the pickleball and the tennis court there, just a suggestion that we take, and it's not a, you know, this wouldn't be a huge major undertaking, but something that we, you know, clean those sheds up and decide how we can make them either look, number one, more uniform, paint them the same color, and then maybe open up some seating along that area.
Yep. Thanks, Joe. Yes, Al?
Piggyback on your idea, Joe. The sheds could be moved up against the Goodlet Frank wall. And the seating could then be on the other side of courts 3, 5, and 7.
Somebody mentioned that.
That's a county easement.
There is an easement, but we would have to look into whether or not to consider permanent structures or movable
It's a
structures.
temporary structure, yes.
Yeah, but we should add it, check it out.
Add it. Okay. Moving ahead, somebody suggested that prime real estate is being taken up by the pro shop, and we should relocate the pro shop somewhere else, whether it be inside this building or into a separate building. Thoughts? You just spoke. Anybody else? Okay, Al.
We could use camera system for the pro shop. I think it's important for the people in the pro shop to be able to see what's going on in the courts.
Yeah.
So we had the idea a couple years ago of building vertically off the pro shop, putting in whatever was necessary to put a second floor on it, and to create a wellness center that would be a second floor to the first floor pro shop for the pickleball tennis pro shop. And that would give us the ability to move all of the aesthetic and massage therapy type stuff out of the community center and into a structure that doesn't take up any larger footprint on the campus, thereby freeing up more room inside the community center for other projects.
Joe?
Yeah, again, this is something that somebody brought to my attention. You know, we've had some incidents over the last year or so in the evenings, maybe a little vandalism or kids and that sort of thing. Al had mentioned, having cameras and stuff. I think for security purposes, we probably should improve our security in terms of cameras and that sort of thing.
I thought we already approved that. Didn't we already approve that? Make sure,
Tonight, they are about done.
Yeah.
We're adding, so we'll have security cameras covering all the courts and the bocce area. And so it's pretty much all covered.
And I'll just add on to that. Somebody else has brought this to my attention, I don't typically use my phone when I'm playing tennis, but there's people around the campus that say that there's limited internet around the campus. And so it's something else we might want to boost up the internet. It's not an issue for me, but somebody mentioned it.
yeah.
I'm just asking for information, but it looks to me like isn't moving the pro shop a means to an end rather than an end in itself?
I could agree with that argument.
On the subject of moving the pro shop, some people had suggested we move it into Suite C or something to that effect. The problem we ran into, this building is already full of activities. There's no room to take a big footprint away. And I can't think of any way to get rid of the pro shop. Let me reword that sentence. The pro shop has a lot of services it provides, and there's no way to just simply delete those and no other good place to put them. So if you tore down the tennis shop or the pro shop, then you'd have to rebuild a pro shop somewhere. And bathrooms and a place to buy shirts and to do all the work.
Thank you, Nate. Anybody have any other comments on that? 6, dog park. Somebody wanted us to find space to put in a dog park facility. Mr. Carter.
A dog park, I think, is be under the jurisdiction of the CDD and not the foundation, because we don't have any place to build a dog park. So I not to say that's not a bad idea, but I think we are the wrong group to look at it.
Well, let's just talk about it on its own merits, whether or not it's a benefit to the community to have one. Once again, some of the challenges we have in terms of the how, as we talk in a smaller group, we'll identify, whether it be land, whether it be environmental factors or costs that we can't do it. Does anybody have anything else on dog parks? We're going to go to somebody new.
Lucy Dresty. The problem is that if you put in a dog park and the dog attacks somebody, are we all liable? If there is a problem?
Certainly something we would have to take a look at and document. Yep.
And just quickly, and I'm a dog lover and I have dogs. We'd like to all have everything. Land issue is a big issue. There's 1,000 dogs around here and everybody walks their dog and they've gotten to know all your neighbors because if you have a dog. So as much as I'd love almost every single thing on that list, that could be one I could take off personally.
Al?
There's several small locations, one behind the basketball courts. Another one behind those 3 ugly buildings, which are probably going to get moved anyway someday. And the third location, it escapes me right now, but there's small spots. That's all I have to say on that.
Not behind 9, Joe, at least half of 9. We have about 30 feet, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, from when we're going to put pickleball courts there. We have about 30, 35 feet behind 7 and 9. 9, the last half of 9 is the golf course. So there is limited room there if we wanted a dog park there. The question is how many,
I don't want a dog park.
Yeah.
Just saying we're-
Any other comments on a dog park?
Take a look at the minutes from some years ago. Okay. There was a notice put out that people walking the dogs on foundation property, okay, had to be monitored. You have a dog park means cutting them loose. I think we already eliminated that situation years ago.
Right, once again,
So I don't know, find another major entity here that PUD, whatever you want to call it, that has a dog park. And you'll be amazed there are none. There are really great dog parks here, one off of Livingston Road, one by Veterans Park. Okay, and those are the kind of facilities run by there, and they're great. They're great, and if you think you're gonna put 40 square feet out, you shouldn't be letting the dogs go back behind there.
okay, let's move on to item 7, which is probably one of the larger ones why people have come to the meeting. So expanding, updating the gym. Would anyone want to provide any general comments related to the gym?
Hi, this is Fiona. I am the chair of the fitness committee. I'm only taking one little minute here. I just wanted to say that thank you to the board for the fabulous new equipment. It is getting used. It is wonderful. It is a massive upgrade from where we were. I'm going to give you some data since we've been talking about that. Between October 1st and December 31st of 2024, we had 11,600 swipes in the fitness facility. It's a huge number. We had 885 individuals who used it. It's incredible, the usage in there. It's bigger than tennis or pickleball. It is getting used. It's getting used more because of the new equipment, which is great. There's definitely a need. Every time we hold a fitness committee, they talk about the spin. Spin is an issue. Those classes are all full. Those bikes are outside. Those people are not very happy with them sitting out there. It runs into bocce too. I mean, I think we need to invest a little bit more in it at some point. It doesn't have to be immediate, but it's definitely a pressing issue. And the usage supports, I mean, if you look at personal training, those personal trainers are booked all the time, constantly. So
That 885 swipes a month?
that was, let me do it again.
I
That was
think-
11,600 swipes between October 1st and December 31st, and it was 885 separate individuals.
Would anyone like to talk further about the gym?
Percent of the population here. And you divide that by 3. You're talking about 3 months, 20, okay, 800, 1,200, 1,100, whatever the number is, divided by the 3 months. Okay, divide that by 3,800 potential people that can use it. 10% community attack. And spread that across the time that it's open, 12 hours.
Yeah, I think you could, as Joe is saying, you could talk about that, about all the amenities. There is pockets of populations that have their focus on cards or pickleball or tennis. So, did you have a comment, Steve? You're using your 3x3, you know.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. I'm almost. With regard to the gym expansion, I do think that it's worth thinking about a hierarchy of needs here. The timing in terms of how these individual items are approached, and from my perspective, both on the board and as a non-board citizen here, I see that this is of most interest to most people in terms of amenities, in terms of possible infrastructure expansion, in terms of allocation of our resources. I think this, if you do another survey, I think you're going to find that the 2020 survey still holds. I mean, you guys done the pickleball, we did the restaurant. The beach and bike lane stuff was all sort of a self-solving problem. This is the big issue. This is the big kahuna, and it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to take time. It needs to be done in phases. And, we have plans. We've looked at it. So I think it's time to kind of look at that first phase and start to get serious about it.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody else? Uwe? Thanks, Cindy.
I think build it and they will come. The facility is really tight right now. It's tight for classes, it's tight for bikes, it's tight for the fitness equipment. And you're having tremendous usage already. You're having tremendous usage despite the fact that it's so tight. I truly believe that if we build it, we'll up that usage significantly. So I see, I see this as a top priority for where we need to go.
I have my facilitator hat on today, but, when I think about property values and what attracts people to a community, I do believe in my heart that, having a top-notch gym, whether it be size, equipment, is a huge benefit to the community. Paige?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I do use the fitness center pretty often, and I have noticed a trend where I do have to wait, more for the equipment. Is it killing me? No. There is only one mat area now. I have to wait more for the weight benches to do some of my stuff there. So there is more usage for sure, and I am waiting more, but it's not killing me. But for the future, I do think it's a good investment opportunity.
I wonder
for
if,
us.
do we have any data for any historical periods? Like, a year or two ago, if there,
I know it's on the upswing, and I'm sure that Patrick could get us.
yeah, that'd be, as we move forward, as we do our due diligence, we'll probably ask for that type of data.
Our population.
Hold on, people online.
We want our population that's coming in to be younger. Younger people look at fitness far more than older people. I mean, I look at it, but younger people who are coming to play. If you looked over Christmas and you saw who was using our facilities, you couldn't get into the gym. Pickleball was off the chart. The playground was filled. Pelican Marsh Elementary School is an A+ elementary school, and that bus goes right up this roadway here. That's what we need to keep our eye on, because that's our property values. And you know what? That's our investment. And for a lot of us, that's our biggest investment. So I do love the fact that we're looking at this, because I do think this is crucial to our future. So I, for one, would really like this to be on top of the chart.
Did you have something else to add real fast?
I
Paige? Yeah.
do, but I don't know if I violated the rule of 3 yet. I just wanted to add 2 things. We know that the revenue from the trainers is increasing, and that I do think that's visibly obvious when you're in the fitness center. We also know from some work Patrick did a while back regarding competitive analysis that we have fewer square feet per user than our competition. So I think with some metrics, we'll see some of those needs.
Yeah,
as
we know
well.
from a finance perspective, we've seen revenues increase as well.
Hi.
The
fitness is definitely growing and there is a need. Steve, I recall back in 22, we looked at several different ideas how to expand that. And one of the things I'm going to stress is the fact that accurate data, timeline data from 5 a.m. to whatever time it is, all that information is gathered. You have to see how we can allocate the funds at how much should we put into it? Do we put in 8,000 square feet, 2,400 square feet? Because again, you have to look at the fact that during the holidays, yeah, we had a lot of visitors here, younger families that were here, and they used them, but they all left. So we just want to make sure that we're spending money correctly. I think it's a good investment in our fitness center because it is a great amenity and it is growing, but it's really, you need to have something behind it to justify how much it gets expanded, how much money is put and how quickly it's done. That's the other thing to keep in mind, because if this thing is growing faster than anything else, then maybe gets way pushed off, the parking lot goes to the top of the list. So that would be my suggestion, is that to really look at that hard and have detailed information to base any kind of future investigation.
George?
Hi, George Custis. I guess I have a question for Fiona and the committee. It appears to me that, like many other things, the activity is heaviest in the morning in the gym, because I go in the afternoon and it's not bad. So I was wondering, has that been looked at by the staff? Is there some way that maybe the trainers could be scheduled differently? So maybe they do their training, in the afternoons a little bit more often? Or if we start to utilize maybe even like court reserve or something where people say, well, I can't get into the gym at 8 this morning, but I can look at the 9 o'clock time slot or the 10 o'clock time slot or something. Just as a, interim solution and, maybe a more long-term solution.
I think that that's not a bad idea. I will tell you that the personal training is way up in there. I mean, I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but it's growing and growing and growing. And the clients, which are all of us, are looking to have time slots available when they want them available. They may not want afternoons. Some of these trainers in there are literally every hour of the day. Revenue is way up on personal training. It is busier in the morning, it's less busy in the afternoon, but it's still, and whoever commented about the holiday thing, it was definitely, it was crazy over break. But I think if you would go in there at most mornings, you will find it pretty packed.
Right. Right, so, yeah, I don't think we have to debate, certainly there's probably opportunities related to that, we could even want to add additional trainers, it's something we can look into. Uwe?
Yeah, Brian, I think the one issue with fitness is that it is budget-wise one of the bigger items potentially on that list. And at the moment, we don't have the budget, we don't have the cash. It may tie into stuff like the committee for donations. So the how-to for the fitness will be a big how-to that we'll have to solve.
Yeah, could possibly be an assessment for sure.
I just have one more comment on the fitness. If we benchmark the capability of our equipment versus some other fitness centers around, we might find that some places have equipment that's much more, I'll say, user interactive, where you can walk up to the machine, put your phone at the machine, and it tells you exactly how many reps you did the last time, what weights, etc. I know that's not a problem that we're trying to solve for right now, but it is a potential opportunity for the next generation equipment.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'll make note of that to include. Anybody have anything else related to gym?
Brian, I have one thing I'd like to add.
Yes. 1 second, please.
We don't have a spin room anymore because it turned into a kitchen. And just the spin room part of the gym is a big item. And so if we were to add on to the gym a big enough area to have a spin room, then we would have solved one slice of this problem and the gym would still be just as crowded as it is now. And so it almost feels like two separate issues, Brian, the spin room and the gym, because there is ways to expand the gym without adding a spin room. And if you added a spin room, you might not have expanded the gym. So the gym is not only a big issue, but the spin room makes it a big ticket issue, even bigger than it is by itself.
We'll separate them. We might combine them at some point again, but we could separate them just for discussion purposes.
I'm so sorry, I'm 3 and done. And
You know?
there is conversation about simpler things to do in the gym, and I know that a lot of the board members are aware of it. Simply moving Patrick's office to the back, opening Patrick's area up, a door between the gym and the fitness room so that the fitness room can be used when the gym is busy. If there's not a class going on, would be a huge plus. So there are some tweaks that can be made. I mean, there's also much bigger ideas like, I didn't even realize it, but there's a second set of doors in there so that you could actually bump the gym out into the hallway and have that space where the lockers are. So there's all kinds of things that have been kicked around. I know the board is quite aware of it. So you can do little tweaks or you can do big tweaks.
I'll just say, as one board member, I'm not fully aware of some of the things you just suggested. So I'm not sure how well they've been brought forward in terms of.
Patrick and Paul are certainly aware of them and they have talked about them because we have talked about them. So let the board be educated on that maybe.
Anybody else have anything to say about gyms? Okay, last gym comment. Just as a time check, we're about 1 hour in. Our time commitment to the group was 2 hours, so just want everyone to gauge that accordingly.
So it might be worth considering reconstituting the long-range planning committee, the committee that existed 5 years ago, and that had a bunch of subject matter experts on it who were able to, there was some institutional memory there. And some of the ideas I'm hearing now are ideas that are well-known to some of us who've been on the board in the past few years, and they're being treated sort of like new ideas. I know that you know, the people on the board come and go, and but if you have a dedicated committee that's looking at this stuff, maybe they can keep track of ideas, plans better than the guys who are supposed to just be doing the overall administration of the foundation, and
turn over the institutional knowledge.
don't have the bandwidth to be paying attention to every little detail on this stuff.
Anybody else have a gym comment?
Such as you mentioned, spin and fitness. And I think that the fitness continues to grow in general. But when you talk about the costs of doing both, it really becomes really crazy. And my thinking is that you have, and I've mentioned this before, you have 18 potential spin bikes that can be used at one time. And I think they're doing it 4 or 5 days a week. So even if it's that capacity for so many months, if you're generating so much interest in that, but the fitness center is getting so much more traffic, it would make more sense to allocate those funds once the data is put together to put into the fitness center. And as far as a home for the spin bikes, I had mentioned it before about storaging there, utilizing these same tracks and putting separate tracks in there. When it's time for the spin classes, which are in the morning, one time, 5 days a week, 4 days, what it is, they pull them out, use them. When they're done, they put them back in. The curtains get pulled back in and it's done and over with. And it's a simple, inexpensive way, and you can allocate the extra funds to the fitness center.
Thank you, Dina. Okay, let's move along. Item 8, landscaping improvements, whether it be lighting, a water fountain feature. Recommendation was to improve those aspects of the community. Thoughts, comments? Who has a microphone? No, this young lady here is going to speak first.
I got it. I
Thanks.
got it. Thank you. Hi, Ann DeSelding, Muirfield. The water feature has been discussed for a while. Paul's done some research on it to ideally be in the area where those big pots are by the pro shop, which I think, if it's done right, would be an amazing entrance and would look wonderful and really upgrade everything the beautiful area that we have here. So I'm very much in favor of the water feature.
Brave, any other comments?
My background is long-term planning and land development. Okay, so I look at things, buy a piece of ground from a farmer and I got to hope you're going to move on it in 5 years. Items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? 9 are all related to parking. Am I correct?
Jerry, our objective today is
Yeah, I
to
know.
gather
Let me finish,
information.
please. Let me finish,
Okay.
please. Okay? The other items are all budgetary items, if you have the money to do them. So 12 doesn't even belong on the list. That's a CDD issue. Okay? So you're spinning your wheels the same way we spin them the last 20 years. I've been on the board, from day one. The concept that was there, you can't satisfy every new objective base because unfortunately, we were left with 5 acres. Okay? And you live with it. Okay? You and I have talked about the parking.
Mhm.
Going on, what, 4 months now, and you still haven't got an agreement with the golf club.
It's been 2 years. Go ahead.
So if I have anything up on that list, is I would wine and dine the guys on the board at the golf club to get the parking,
Yep.
okay? Everything else is mute. You're spinning your wheels.
Hey, Jerry.
Yeah.
We're moving down that path, and if you look at point number 2, it says don't judge and criticize.
Yeah.
We should go back.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just pointing a fact. It's not criticizing, I'm just putting a fact out.
Okay. Any other comments about where we're at, landscaping?
Yeah, just an overall, I don't mind the idea of, beautification of as we walk in the entryway, but if you walk around the entire campus out the outside, I know Dino has mentioned this about around the bocce area. I see it around the tennis courts as well. We started doing this with the artificial grass and some of those things, and everybody and the landscaping around the pro shop and the front entryway. And we've gotten a lot of compliments about that, but I think we've got some more to do around the overall campus and increasing the beauty of the campus. And those aren't huge projects as much as they are taking what we have right now, as Jerry mentioned, with our budget, and continuing to make the place look better.
Uwe. I'm assuming Paul's got that covered.
So I think one of the challenges we have is we're very compact for space and we're losing the grass areas gradually as we put other uses out there. It's inevitable because we have very little space. So I think we have to be careful to keep beautifying the more compact area. So all those beautification items are really important to make this and keep this looking good. But I wonder if it wouldn't make sense to get some help from a landscape designer or an artist to help us with some concepts so that we're working towards an overall look and feel.
As opposed to piecemeal, yeah.
As opposed to doing these individual improvements. And I'm not saying the individual improvements that we've done are bad. I'm just saying as we continue to squeeze here and there and take stuff out, we're putting pavers over here. Maybe the pavers need some planter boxes. I don't know. And maybe we could get some help with that to come up with a plan.
Anybody else?
Catch up, questions online, just where we're at today, on the list. Going back, there was a comment on the dog park, suggesting that a dog park's gonna take a lot of space, needed space. One section for large dog, one section for small dogs, so. And liability, that kind of stuff to look at.
Okay.
The other one was had to do the fitness center and her input.
Indoor dining was proposed by somebody in the community. Anybody have any thoughts? They'd like to discuss that. And once again, if we don't have something in support of a concept or idea or a reason why we want to do it, we don't have to talk about why it won't work.
Indoor dining. We had discussed this in the past, but the other evening I froze outside and I thought of something that I don't know if it's been thought of before. Because the propane heaters cannot be underneath the tie beam or under air, that area in there gets really cold. And I thought to myself, how many other restaurants we've been to where they have the radiated heat above. And I thought to myself, well, if you had so many of them, you could start with whatever it is they recommend, so many per square feet or whatever it is, and you did wrap it around the indoor section under the tie beam, all of a sudden, all of those tables become indoor, climate controlled. And actually between the heaters on the outside and that lost heat that would go outside, you'd actually expand a little bit more around the rim. And this way you wouldn't have to be taking up possibly, we looked at inside here at one time, that could be utilized for something else. So it was a thought because I was freezing. It would be nice to be a little bit warmer when you're outside. But again, it's only certain times of the year that you have to worry about that. So you have to look at, is the expense worth, what is maybe done?
Bob?
Thanks. I'm going to piggyback on what Bob Genetti, what Dino just had to say. There are very good radiant heaters that will heat up that space beautifully. Paul and I talked about that a couple of years ago. I think he might even have the information and I could even share it again. Because we do have to think about the fact that yes, revenues went up 7% over last year, but it's going to happen in the wintertime. It's going to happen January, February, March. Those are the season that we need to really go after. So every day that we lose, it's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 that we're losing. So that those would help a lot. Is there maybe a list that could be actionable right now? That sounds to me like something that might just involve moving what we have.
I would think so.
Yeah, that'd be electric already up there. Yeah. So that could be a list. Do it now. Why not?
Yep, fair enough. Okay, item 10, a game room. The recommendation was having a common area, indoor area for pool tables, ping pong tables, card tables, and so forth. Anybody have any comments related to that? We have a thumbs up. Cindy? Hold on.
I speak loud and I always speak loud. I think it goes back to the space,
Mhm.
whether it's space outside, space in here, space upstairs. I mean, every
Yep.
single thing has gone back to space.
We understand that.
Yes.
But it becomes, if it's a choice between a gym and a game room, we're trying to get the feedback from the community, which ones they prefer.
I
You
think,
know, that's why we're having this discussion,
Yes.
is to hear from the community.
and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying what did we think? And I think there's a lot of great ideas, and having a pool table, ping pong table, darts. You know, if you were in New Jersey, you'd have a huge basement, and then you'd fill the basement, but you're in Florida and you don't have it, and we can't go upstairs. I think it's great, but I think that requires a lot of room in order to do it right. One pool table is not going to do enough. A ping pong table, a few darts is nice, but we've got a lot of people here. We have 1,900 doors here, and I think that would require much more space than we can do.
You know, one of the things that's been brought up in the past among the board is just a space usage study. And, you know, a couple of people have brought up how much the space, let's say, our classroom space is utilized, say, in the evening hours. You know, those are the types of things I think we should challenge ourselves to look into as well, is, you know, I know, well, I only did it once. There's a very nice ping pong table that I rolled out on a rainy day and played with a couple friends, you know, in the class space. It's in the big double door closet in there. But I don't think many people know about that. So maybe one of the things we need to do is just look at, you know, how we can, you know, use the space we have. And maybe that is part of a long-term standing planning committee. Okay, any other comments on that? Okay. Renovate the community center. That's a very broad and general topic. You know, part of the reason we were going through these is the people that are, you know, excited or want to champion those concepts. You know, we're trying to get their feedback. So I don't know if anyone has any general thoughts about this. I will share that, you know, I think is it 26 or 27, the reserve has new carpeting and refreshing of this general room. I think it's 27. You know, just as a frame of reference. Whether or not that's what the intent of this is, I'm not really sure. Anybody have any thoughts related to that? Okay. Improve bike and walking paths. Once again, this was part of the prior study. I'll just give my 2 cents. I do think this is a CDD challenge, Bob, but if anyone wants to generally comment about that. I lost my microphones. Thanks, Cindy.
I was just going to say, from the last study, we know that it was identified as a need as much as pickleball courts and tennis courts were very close, 5 to 6%. It's a safety concern. I understand what people are saying about the need for CDD engagement. I happen to know somebody that's involved with CDD fairly well. But my point is, we should focus on the needs. And then, like you said before, the hows come after that.
Mhm.
So if we said that, you know, we wouldn't work on the parking lot because we need the help from the golf course or
Mhm.
CDD, then we would stop.
Yep.
But this is about the what, and it is a safety concern. I personally try to minimize my time biking, and that would alleviate parking issues if more people biked. So if we could figure out how to have a slightly wider slightly wider bike path, people talk on their phones when they're driving. It's not something I care to be doing a lot of right now.
Thank you. Uwe?
Yeah, I want to relay a comment I had from my daughter several times. She's asked me several times now, have you recommended that we add a second gate to Mercado? Egrets added that fantastic gate. I think it's been a big success. My daughter says, why don't we have a gate from Oak Moss into the other end of Mercado? It would take you to Rocco Tacos, to where the movie theater is, and it would be accessible by everybody because the egrets gate is meant just for egrets, I understand. I wonder if we could add that, a gate at Oak Moss into Mercado.
Any other comments on the biking and walk paths? Okay, one gentleman in the back here. Thank you.
Just a suggestion, one of the things that you see in the more urban areas around the bike paths are the vertical flexible barriers that they're like posts that do a better job of segregating the bikes from the cars. It's more of a visual thing than actually a guardrail, but it is effective at making those bike paths a little more accessible for everybody.
Yep, good feedback, good point. Anybody else? Anything else? Okay, so those are all the ideas and concepts that were submitted prior to the meeting. We've added, since we've been here, mechanized lap pool, fob system for amenity use, consolidated the sheds, which is, to your point, just do it. I should have something up here that says just do it. A spin room, Oak Moss Mercado Gate. One person prior to the meeting requested an outdoor ping pong table, which once again is a relatively low cost, you know, if we have an area for it. So I'm going to put that up there as well. Before we go in and solicit additional ideas, does anybody have any comments about any of these new items that we added today? Dino?
Going back to the spin room, and I just wanted to add this just so the board keeps this in mind. When it is time to do this, because I was thinking about closing this in for temporary use, think about getting better divider walls that maybe are a little bit more insulated for sound, because it might be able to create space for throughout the year, other events or other activities. So because these walls are we're hearing everything that's going on there and they're hearing us. So maybe something when they do that, to keep that in mind. That just had to go with the spin room with this.
Thank you. Anything else?
I'd like to go back to landscaping just for a moment.
Sure.
I'm wondering if there is a plan to replace some of the vegetation between the new pickleball court and the entrance or the driveway into the community center. Without that vegetation there, it takes on a completely different look to the community center, and kind of in a negative way, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there was a plan for that, or are you accepting ideas?
Not much room where we are replacing the grass that's there now. It's a small strip. There's not really any room to put.
I thought the, what is now court 6, the court closest to the entrance monument, I thought we're going to try to plant,
No, corner, yes.
actually, consistent with the last half of that court, I thought we were going to try to put some kind of foliage that was going to grow taller. Well,
That's a small area, but we can look at that.
okay, we will look at that. Okay, we're gonna start, Jim.
I don't know if you want it here or not, but I think we're gonna take a look at Comcast or an alternative. I think we have 2 years left on that contract. We want to look at Comcast or an alternative. We have 2 years, I believe, left on that contract, but it'd be a good time to establish a committee to look at that and alternatives.
I personally see that more as a board issue to tackle. And I do think that on the board, we should designate somebody to maybe take a look at that. Is that too obvious? So I'm going to parking lot that, but I agree with you, Jim, that we should be active on that. 1 second, let me just catch up. Thanks.
On the, excuse me, on the same topic, as long as we're going out to the community, would it be good to have their feedback on how important the Comcast contract for the entire Pelican Marsh actually is to them?
Good suggestion. I think we can take that into consideration. Generally speaking, I'd like to keep the topics separate. The cost of doing a electronic survey is kind of minimal, but we could talk about that. Okay, Paul, what I'd like to do, the next slide really talks about some ideas around the how. And I don't know how relevant they really are for this discussion. I'd rather just solicit if there's any additional things that people came to this workshop that they wanted to get out on the table. We want to make sure we leave here giving everyone the opportunity to voice whatever wish list or concerns they have about future growth here. That would be slide 9. Sure. Okay, so moving on, what else you got? What are the concepts, concerns? Closing thoughts in terms of you want to reiterate your point of view. That might be a dangerous ask. So there's a second microphone around still?
I would just reiterate the option of the board continuing to work with some design space planners once we have the needs prioritized, and begin with the end in mind and then see how an expert recommends we fill in the space based on what the needs are.
Thank you. Yes.
So just kind of a big picture perspective. I showed up here today thinking maybe it's naive that more amenities and more participation is a total positive for the community. And I realize that not everybody feels that way. But back to one of your comments, Cindy, about attracting people, I'm here 2 years, 3 years now. And one of the reasons I'm here is because of the amenities, because of the activities, and because of the nature of the facilities that help build community. And for example, what's been done with Courtside, I think, is hugely positive in terms of creating a venue where you can, run into people, including Dino, once in a while. And so I think one of the pieces of the puzzle might be to also take a bigger look at how does the overall 1,900 doors, as you said, feel about the idea of enhancing the communities, even if it brings more, what's the right word, concentration to this little corner of the campus. I always thought it was a positive, and I gather most of you feel that way, but clearly not everybody. And so just curious how big of a issue that is for our community.
Thank you. Uwe?
Yeah, I've one more item, and I'm not quite sure where it fits. I'm not sure it fits in this context or not. Much of what we're talking about is what applies to the foundation, to this campus here. There's another thing that goes along with the community aging. The community is 25 years old or so. We've had debates occasionally on individual renovations and houses out in the community. We have the design committee that's supposed to comment on renovation proposals. I think it's going to become increasingly important for the association to look at how we want the community to renovate. When I look over at Pelican Bay, there's a lot of renovation and updating going on already. They're a few years older than we are, but I think Pelican Bay provides a good example of how the community is rejuvenating or turning over as people are renovating their houses. And I'm not so sure where that fits, but I wonder if we need to start focusing on, as a community, how we want that to go down. Some of the stuff they're doing in Pelican Bay, I really like. Some of the stuff that's going on over there, I don't like. And I think by being on top of it, we can help set maybe design guidelines, parameters.
Are you
or whether-
talking about concepts such as single-story homes becoming
Two stories?
multiple-story homes?
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to understand.
As well as colors, roofing,
Uh-huh.
lot coverage. There'll be discussions and pressures from people that redevelop their property. And it's a good thing in a way, because people that want to renovate those properties are willing to invest in the community, put money into the community. We just want to make sure that as a whole, it really helps the community property values in the long run. And again, I don't know where this fits. Not sure if it fits in this context or not. But it's something I think about.
No, I think it's a valid point. Jim?
To piggyback on that, it's the design review group handles that overall, but you're right on target. Community character is extremely important because in Pelican Marsh, we have 100 lakes in this community. We have boulevards with canopy trees. I don't think you'll find a community anywhere in the Naples area that is as attractive as Pelican Marsh. And I've been here for a lot of years. I've been in Collier County for 44 years. So believe me, if we don't maintain this overall community character and decide what do you want to look like, you can end up with some really drastic changes that you're not going to like. So perhaps design review is the people to handle that, but maybe in a bigger picture, the board wants to establish even a larger footprint in conjunction with the CDD.
I think that goes back to one of the first slides that talk about the strengths of our community that was highlighted back in 2020. You got Mike, Cindy, you go first.
Okay, I want to piggyback on what Paige just said and which Uwe said, which really kind of ties into this. I brought up about the seating and the area courts 4, 5, and 6 in the pickleball courts. It did change the whole look of coming into the community center. The shrubs are gone, everything's there. We're sitting on the boulevard. The whole look has changed. I like the idea of having somebody come in, a landscape architect, a landscape designer, looking at our overall landscape. We need some seating back there, but it can't just look like hodgepodge that we throw a few chairs in. And as much as we need it sooner rather than later, I almost would rather have temporary seats that we can, even chairs that we can put up to watch the games right now, because this is crucial. We can't have areas that look like one thing, that look like another thing. Ravenna completely changed the look. We are the whole coastal area. People ask me if we're the newest development in Pelican Marsh. But we can't now have another development that looks totally different. Another development will start to look like we're just a city within a city.
Yep.
So I love the idea of getting a designer, somebody who knows what they're doing in. And
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that way back in 2020, the very first recommendation of the Long Range Planning Committee was to hire a master designer for the total community. And so that's, I think, very consistent with what Uwe is saying at the highest level. And then and the community wasn't ready for it at that point, which is fine, because maybe now is a more appropriate time as we lead into more renovation. At a lower, more micro level, I think what Uwe is also referring to is a tear down policy should be developed, because we are going to have more and more of those like Pelican Bay has had. So it should be part of that overall total design plan.
Yep. Anything else? Right, we'll have to change some docs. Okay. What else? What else would people like to see discussed? Huh? Going once, going twice, is that what you're saying? Steve?
Could you just tell us briefly what the plan is for the bike parking area east of the tennis center?
Yes, so they started work today to expand the pickleball viewing area underneath the tree that is to the east of the pro shop. That is going to be all pavers. Behind the tree that would be closest to the community center, there will be the bike racks that will also be paved, and pavers will tie that into the walking path where those large pots are. So you could either put your bikes there through the path that goes to the pots or through the existing path that comes up by the pickleball courts.
Will the capacity of that area for bike parking be increased? The same?
We have the space to increase it. We're not ordering any new bike racks currently, but
Future to add.
Brian, real quick. I just want to reiterate the need for a committee to follow up on what Paige's committee did a number of years ago, because there's a lot of moving parts here. And also, can you just clarify next steps for me? I know we're going to sort of do a survey and then do a feasibility and cost thing, but then we also are horizontaling in utilization and priority. And how is that? Do you have a sense of how that's all going to work together?
yes, I'll just let Al talk and then I'll go into next steps.
On the issue of the bike pavers that you just talked about, will there be any slight concealment with vegetation of the bikes?
I don't know what that means.
From the parking lot, from the approach area?
Oh, we have not contemplated putting in any blocking foliage.
Okay.
Can we? I would say that probably should be part of any type of master design plan at this point in terms of beautification of the community. Okay, so in terms of next steps, I mean, what we want to do, we want the board members to absorb what's been discussed today. We'll write up notes of discussions and the comments from the community. But the next major milestone is putting these concepts out to the community and get their feedback, to see what they feel as if they want to see. It doesn't mean that they can be delivered, much as in 2020. This means what is important to the overall community, because we had a very small subset of people participating today. Once we have that, we'll use some sort of decision modeling, looking at, what are some of the environmental restraints? Can you do this because of easements, parking constraints, environmental issues? We'll eliminate based on cost or complexity. So we'll use a model that basically says, what is the biggest bonus based on the feedback of the community versus weighing the complexity of the project? For instance, on the next slide, please. One of the things I've used in the past, and there's different models that we could use, but just basically looking at relative cost and the benefit and the feasibility of the project. So, in a model like this, you might have a high cost, which is would be in the lower quadrant, such as adding gym space, but you might have the highest benefit. So, once we have the opportunity to plot the now 19 concepts that were brought forth by the community and get the additional feedback, we'll be able to sit back as a foundation board to say, you know what, these are really the 1 or 2 items that we're hearing and we think we can deliver, in the next 3 to 5 years. So that's kind of what the next steps are. If we just go back one slide. conceptually, we'd be looking to report back out to the community in late spring. If that makes sense to. Okay. So, does anybody have any other comments, closing concerns? Paige, we're gonna have to go to like an 18 by 18 model for you.
Okay, this one, are you going to include any kind of competitive analysis going into this next planning phase? Because I'm sure other communities haven't sat still either. Yeah, to other communities.
I think it's something to consider. It probably depends on the direction we start going. I know I can't commit to say that, yes, we will, but let's make a note of whether or not competitive analysis is needed.
Paige, I believe the plan that you did 5 years ago included a comparison with other communities. It would seem to me it would be relatively easy to update that plan. And there were some key contributors to that, like Jake Elick, for example, who provided a lot of the fees and costs for communities. I actually think that's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Dino,
First of all, thank you for everybody. Brian, thank you for facilitating. You did a great job putting this all, everybody who was involved. Is this, I know that this is our brainstorming thing. Some of the items that were discussed, are they, I know these are board issues, but are they things that will be put off until May also? Like, just for an example, someone's mentioned landscaping, okay? As you're adding or detracting from the common area, if you're adding more pavers, concrete, whatever, the addition of the landscaping to offset the loss of green, is that something that would be discussed in May, or is that something that could be done now? The relocation of the spin bikes that are just sitting back there in the way of everything, is that something that will be addressed in May, or something that will be addressed either by the board or in a thing? That's, I just was wondering
Yeah.
how they're going to look at some of the immediate things, or is everything May?
as you know, there are some items that are being worked on currently, the bikes being one of them. Paul is actively working on changing the scheduling of the spin classes to do that. As one gentleman pointed out, there's some things here that are just do it, combining the sheds, eliminating a shed, doing this and that. We will go through the comments from today and say, you know what, these we should do in the next 6 months, but things that fall into, like you keep on referring to landscaping and foliage and so forth. I do think it's good to pump the brakes a little bit, and instead of putting $3,000 there, $2,000 there, to step back and have more of a plan. Yeah, if that helps you. Anything else? Well, thank you all for coming. We're under our time budget. So a lot of great stuff, a lot of great ideas, so appreciate it. Thank you for your input. Thank you.
Be better.